Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
I'm going to teach water resource engineering for this autumn semester, and syllabus of the course is shown here. First part is it is three parts. So first part is surface water hydrology. So this is the major chunk of syllabus. It almost consists of around 90 to 95% lectures. This is online classes, and classes are started late, so we are short of few lectures. So if we have enough lectures remaining, then other two parts of the syllabus, those are irrigation requirements and design of cross drainage works, and design and drawing of gravity and earth dams, and design and drawing of spillways and energy dissipators will be covered. This irrigation design of canals, design and drawing of weirs, barrages, and design and drawing of gravity dams, design and drawing of spillways, energy dissipators. So this comes into hydraulic structures. So you will be attending another course which is named as hydraulic structures. So you will be learning design of hydraulic structures in that course. So this course I am mainly focusing on surface water hydrology, but if we have enough lectures remaining, then I will try to cover irrigation requirement of crops. But design of hydraulic structures, although that is such as design of canals, design and drawing of weirs, dams, etc. That is part of this course, but we will not be having time for that, and we will be learning those things in hydraulic structures course that will be taught in fourth year or third year. These are the books for water resource engineering course. Mostly I am following applied hydrology, authored by Ventechow, David Maidmate, and Larry Mays. This book is published by McGraw-Hill. It is a 572-page book, and this is the main book we are following in this course. But this course is supplemented by other books. They are listed here from 2 to 4. Irrigation hydrology, which is authored by K. Subramania, published by Tata McGraw-Hill, and irrigation and water resource engineering, authored by G.L. Asawa. Another book is irrigation engineering and hydraulic structures, authored by S.K. Gar. So please try to get these books, so that you need to refer them time to time. Evaluation criteria of this course. So this is a continuing evaluation. Marks distribution is now it is mark distribution is changing now. We are conducting quizzes. We are conducting 3 quizzes, and these 3 quizzes carrying 60 marks. Then assignments and as well as attendance carrying around 40 marks. So attendance will be 10 marks, assignments 30 marks, then quizzes are 60 marks. So major chunk of the marks are coming from quizzes. So these are online quizzes conducted on Moodle. So you will be informed the dates for these quizzes, and you will be given sufficient time to prepare. So all the quizzes are open book exams. The TS are listed here. So we have 7 TS. Okay. So the TS they are helping in grading in. So I am going to the first chapter of this course is hydrologic processes. So today I am going to teach introduction of hydrological processes. So what is hydrology? Hydrology is a study of water, because water is an abundant resource available to us on this planet, and we need to maintain it and manage it. So for that we need information, and we need tools. Okay, so they all comes into the hydrology. So we don't in hydrology we don't discuss like chemical composition of water and etc., but we will be dealing with uh, the quantity of water flowing in rivers, or quantity of water from earth, how much it evaporates, and what is the precipitation on earth, and what is the precipitation amount of precipitation on oceans. Then there are phase changes, like water is converted to gaseous state, that is evaporation. This evaporated water forms clouds by condensation. So all these processes, and how much quantity is changing phases, those are analyzed in hydrology. And apart from that, we need to design reservoirs, dams, spillways, etc. So reservoir has to store water, and how much water to be stored. So we need to do analysis. We need to study the demands, and for which this reservoir is constructed, and we have to see the river which feeds the reservoir. So we need to know how much quantity is flowing throughout the year in that river. And from the dam, the water again goes downstream through a spillway. So we need to design spillway capacity. So that spillway capacity should be such that it should cater very rarest to rare flood, okay, such as probable maximum flood. So calculation of this probable maximum flood for that river, that kind of that information is part of hydrology. And for cities, we need to design water distribution systems, and stormwater drains. So for city, of course, by population and the industries, etc., we can estimate the demand. But to meet the demand, we have to find a source. So the source should have sufficient water. So all these calculations are part of hydrology. To design stormwater drain, we need to study intensity, duration, frequency curves, and these intensity, duration, frequency curves, how to draw them and how to analyze them, that also comes into the hydrology. So to manage water resources, studying hydrology is very important. So therefore this is a very important course for BTech Civil curriculum. Now let us define the terms of, okay, Before that, this hydrological cycle. What is hydrological cycle? Hydrological cycle is a continuous circulation of water on planet Earth from land to atmosphere and atmosphere back to land and oceans, from again back from oceans and land to atmosphere. So this circulation of water from these different parts, okay, such as land, ocean, atmosphere, then poles, groundwater, etc. So there is a continuous water circulation is happening. This is the energy required for this circulation is obtained from sun. So this continuous circulation is called hydrological cycle. Hydrological cycle has got many subcomponents. They are precipitation, then evapotranspiration, subsurface flow, then condensation, then transportation, and infiltration, and etc. So let's discuss all these things very detailed. So hydrology is a study of water, and hydrological cycle is a continuous movement of water from land, sea, and atmosphere back to land, and this process continues for you can say millions of years. Okay, so hydrological cycle is formed when this earth is formed, and so it will be there until and unless it will be there until this earth exists. So the important terms of hydrological cycle are evaporation, transportation, condensation, precipitation, interception, infiltration, overland flow, subsurface flow, surface runoff, recharging, groundwater. So let's discuss briefly about these terms. So evaporation. Evaporation is water converted to water vapor. That is nothing but gaseous state, and it is lifted by the convection, and so this evaporated water it rises, and this vapor it rises and rises due to the temperature decrease, it condenses. So this water vapor it is generated at the land and vegetation and water bodies, oceans, and this water vapor is transported from one location to other. So we see that in the coast areas we receive a lot of precipitation or a lot of rain. That because the water vapor from oceans that is transported to the coastal areas. So even in the desert areas, sometimes rains. So whatever the vapor, which is converted to precipitation, so that is coming from evaporated from some other areas, and this the evaporated water from different places to the desert, it is due to the transportation by wind. Condensation. So condensation is this air it holds the vapor, and the holding capacity of vapor decreases with decreasing temperature. So once this water vapor is lifted upwards, and it is lifted of like few kilometers from the land, so the temperature will be very low there. Then the vapor comes out of this air, okay, that is called as condensation. So in the condensation, this vapor, it again converted to liquid phase. And this condensation, when condensation happens, this water vapor, when it converted to liquid state, very tiny droplets are formed. But these tiny droplets, they grow in size because of collision with other tiny droplets due to the circulation of the wind. Once these tiny drops exceed certain size, then they are subjected to gravitational forces, so they will fall down on the earth. So that is called as precipitation. And interception, because this precipitated water, before landing earth, before landing surface, it lands on vegetation such as trees. So some amount of water is stored on the trees, okay, because it will stick to the leaves and branches. Of course, this water again evaporated back to atmosphere later, but this loss is called interception loss, because when the rainfall happens, so some water before reaching the land, it lost due to the trees, because they store this water and eventually it evaporated. So once this rainfall reaches land, some amount of water it infiltrates, okay, because this rain when it reaches land, it flows on the land, so that is called as overland flow. When this overland flow is taking place, some amount of water infiltrated into the subsurface. So the overland flow minus infiltration is called as the subsurface. Overland flow, there is infiltration, and this infiltrated water, it seeps through the ground, and part of this infiltrated water reaches groundwater. Remaining, it parallelly flows. It flows parallel to the land and reaches surface at nearest stream or river. So subsurface flow is nothing but this is water movement through soil at shallow depth, and it comes back to the land when this subsurface flow meets some stream. So overland flow minus subsurface flow is called as surface runoff. And as I mentioned, this infiltrated water, because part of infiltrated water, it percolates deep and recharges groundwater, and other part it parallelly moves parallel to the surface, and eventually it comes out near a stream, or it may join a lake or pond. So that is called as subsurface flow. So subsurface flow mainly takes in unsaturated soil. So hydrological system is a closed system. So there are any system we can classify it as a closed system or open system. We all know that continuity equation. Continuity equation is a conservation of mass. That means inflow is equal outflow. So when inflow is equal outflow, that is called as a closed system. So if inflow is not equal to outflow, okay, then it is an open system. So hydrological cycle is a closed system, because every water drop is accounted. I'm going to explain in the next figure the mass balance of the water circulation in hydrological cycle. So in the closed system there is no gain or no loss, and totally there is a fixed amount of water which is under circulation. Of course, this closed system and open system, this is that is based on how we look at it. I'm going to come back to this later. Suppose if we take a watershed and we do not care about we do not consideration of infiltration, then the inflow into the watershed, that is the rainfall, that is not equal to the outflow at outlet, because some water is seeped into the ground. So suppose if we don't consider that infiltration, then it is a open system. But if we in hydrological cycle, because hydrological cycle is it's complete earth. Okay, we are considering the complete planet, water movement through the complete planet. So in this we are considering all subcomponents, all like infiltration and evaporation, evapotranspir, everything is considered. So therefore there is no gain or loss of water in this. And if we sum all the water available, then at any point of time it is the same amount of water is available. So this is a hydrological cycle schematic. Okay. So for example, 100 units of precipitation is occurring on the land. So in that, some part of water is infiltrated. Okay, so when it infiltrates, it increases soil moisture, and some part of water is flowing as surface runoff. So it is joining a lake, a pond or river, and some part of infiltrated water again joining this lake. So it is shown it here. This infiltrated water, it is moving parallel to the land surface, and it is joining a reservoir here. And part of infiltrated water, that is joining groundwater, because groundwater is available at very deep. That is groundwater table is at different locations. It is at different depth. Okay, but groundwater is different from subsurface flow, because subsurface flow is nothing but unsaturated flow, whereas groundwater flow is a saturated flow. So when this 100 units of precipitation is occurring, within that 60 units of water is evaporated, okay, from land, trees. So the evapotranspired water, that is 61 units. So out of 100 units, again 61 units gone back to the atmosphere. So remaining is 39 units. So in 39 units, 1 unit reaches to groundwater, and other 38 units, okay, that is subsurface flow and surface flow. That together, finally they join ocean. So 38 units has come, and this groundwater, that is that receives 1% of water from precipitation, and that 1% goes back to the ocean. So 100 units out of 100 units rainfall, 61 units gone back to atmosphere as evaporation, and 39 units joined ocean. So there is a complete mass balance. And from oceans, then 424 units evaporated. So in the 429 units, it receives 39 units from the from ground flow and subsurface flow. So that 39 units goes back to the clouds forming on the land. And that 39 units, then there is a 61 units coming from evapotranspiration, so totally 100 units. That 100 units again comes back to the land as a rainfall. So when this evaporated water from ocean, that is 424 units. So in 424 units, only 39 units transported towards land, and remaining 385 units, it again goes back to the ocean as a precipitation. So we can see that in the hydrological cycle there is a complete mass balance. So therefore it is called as a closed system. So you see that here the estimated quantities of water are given on Earth. 96.5% of all Earth water is in the oceans. Okay, so you can see that maximum water is available in oceans, and remaining water is 3.5%. So in the 3.5%, 1.7% is in polar ice. Okay, so the remaining amount is around another 1.7%, another 1.8%. So within that, 1.7% is in groundwater and only 0.1% in the subsurface and atmospheric water system. So in the total available water in the rivers, lakes, ponds and atmosphere, so everything together it is 0.1%. Okay, so we can see that how much from this analysis we can see that how much water is available in oceans. So if the quantity of suppose if Earth is a uniform shape, okay, so there is no deep gorges or mountains. If it is like a round, like a ball, then if the ocean water is added on the Earth's surface, then the depth of water becomes 2.6 kilometers. Okay, so the ocean water is sufficient to cover Earth to a depth of 2.6 kilometers. So from this we can conclude that there's available water on this planet, so mostly in the oceans. And the atmospheric water, that is at any point of time the water available in the atmosphere, that is in terms of condensation and clouds and water vapor, so the total water is 12,900 kilometer cube, and this 12,900 kilometer cube of water, this is less than 0.1% of the total available water on this planet. So out of because we know that this 96.5% water that is in oceans, that is saline, but for human beings and in animals, we need fresh water for our drinking purposes. So the fresh water is only 3.5%. Okay, so within that 2/3 is available at polar ice, available as polar ice. So 2/3 is around 67%. So 67% of fresh water is available at poles, and remaining 30% that is available in the groundwater. I see that a very small percent, that is 0.006% of fresh water is available in the rivers. and the biological water that is available in the tissues of plants, animals, that makes up only 0.003%. This table gives quantities of water available in different items such as oceans, groundwater. We can see that oceans, that is 96.5% total water, that is equal to 1338 million kilometer cube. So we can see that rivers, they got only 0.0002%, and the total water quantity available in the oceans, lakes, rivers, and biological water, etc., everything total, that comes around 1385 million kilometer cube. So this is the global annual water balance. We can see that the evaporated water here is from land, that is equal to 72,000 kilometer cube per year. Okay, 72,000 kilometer. So in that, so this 72,000, because this again, this evaporated water, then there is also part of water coming from oceans. Okay, so that becomes precipitation. So that precipitation, the total precipitation on land, so that is equal to 119,000 kilometer cube per year. So you can see that the remaining water, this 119,000 kilometer cube per year minus 72,000 kilometer cube per year. So that is that water flowing in rivers. Okay, so that is equal to sorry. So the total precipitation is 119,000 kilometer cube per year, and from that again 72,000 goes back as evaporation to the atmosphere. So the remaining water is around 47,000. So in the 47,000, so this goes to oceans. Okay, so in that 44,700 kilometer cube per year flows in rivers. The remaining water, that is 2,200 kilometer cube per year, that flows into oceans from groundwater table. So you can see that there is a 100% mass balance of water in hydrological cycle. And so right, water, these water molecules in this hydrological cycle, when they are transferred from land to atmosphere through evaporation, and from there this there's a condensation, okay, clouds formation, then precipitation, etc. So water molecule is traveling from one phase to other, or we can say one subsystem to other subsystem. Like one subsystem is once the precipitation occurs, so from that point, from that point onwards, when the water joins oceans, so this is a runoff. Okay, so the precipitation flows over land and subsurface that finally reaches ocean. So this is, we can say, as runoff plus a subsurface flow. So water molecule, it spent some time from when it fall on land to when it join ocean. Okay, and again water molecules spend some time when it evaporates from ocean, then until and unless it becomes cloud. So in between again it spends some time. So this is called as residence time. So when the residence time is duration of a water molecule to pass through a subsystem of the hydrological cycle. Okay, so residence time in rivers is some time. Then residence time in groundwater, that is also a that is also different. Then residence time of a water molecule in the atmosphere, okay, that is from the time it becomes evaporated, becomes water vapor, and then it falls as a precipitation. So when the water molecule goes through these subsystems, it spends some time in each subsystem. So that is called as residence time, and these residence times are different for different subsystems. So here we are calculating the residence time of water in the atmosphere. Okay, so residence time is calculated as storage by flow rate. Okay, because when it is passing through that subsystem, it is like a storage. Okay, but when it exits or enters into the subsystem, that is become a flow rate. So TR is equal S by Q. When we consider the residence time of atmospheric moisture, okay, so the storage of water in the atmosphere, that is equal to 12,100 kilometer cube, but the water molecule, it comes into atmosphere as a evaporation from land as well as evaporation from oceans. Okay, so evaporation from oceans, that is equal to 458,000 kilometer cube per year, and evaporation from land, that is equal to 119,000 kilometer cube per year. So the total, the flow rate through this atmosphere is equal 577,000 kilometer cube per year. Therefore, residence time of atmospheric moisture is calculated as 12,900 divided by 577,000. So that is equal to 0.022 year. So when we convert that into days, it becomes 8.2 days. So what we understand from this calculation is a water molecule spends around 8.2 days in the atmosphere. So what is the significance of this 8.2 days? Because this 8.2 days governs the weather pattern. Okay, the rainfall or storm, etc. They are governed by this the amount of time spent by the water molecule in the atmosphere. So therefore, our weather forecasting methods, they can only forecast accurately up to 8.2 days, and after 8.2 days they can predict, but the prediction is not accurate. Okay, so this hydrological cycle, this is also called a system. So what is system? So system has set of components which are linked to one another through input, output, and storage. So in a system which has got different subcomponents and they're interconnected, and these all subcomponents, they work towards a common goal or common principle. So therefore, they act like a whole, and it is called as a system. For example, hydrological system, hydrological cycle, it is called as a hydrological system. So it has got many components: evapotranspiration, condensation, transportation, precipitation, then runoff, infiltration, subsurface flow, ground flow, all these things. Okay, so they are all subcomponents of this hydrological system, and all are working towards a common goal, that is recirculation of water within the planet. And in mathematical terms, a system which is like a black box which takes inputs and gives output. In between there is a transformation. So suppose like this system, we can consider it as this box. This it is a hydrological system, hydrological cycle. So within that there are a lot of subcomponents. For example, we consider one subcomponent that is groundwater. Okay, so groundwater is also, although it is a part of a system, big system, that is hydrological cycle, it is also kind of a small system. So there is an input, okay, that is water coming to the groundwater through infiltration. So once it comes into the groundwater, again that water it goes to the ocean or otherwise springs. Okay, otherwise it may join in some deep canyon, it may join a river in deep canyon. But in between, once it takes input, when it gives output, it goes some transformation. What is the transformation? Because it takes this infiltration occurs at one location, okay, and it joins ocean at some other location. In between there is a groundwater flow. Okay, so within this this groundwater flow, from the time of input to output, it takes year or 6 months or whatever. Okay, so the transformation is taking place, that is delay in time. This is just an example I am giving. So this hydrological cycle, it can be divided into 3 subsystems. Okay, that is subsurface flow, surface flow, and atmospheric water. That is based on the where this process are taking place, whether these process are taking place in the underground, or they are taking place on the just above the surface, or they are taking place in the atmosphere. So based on where these processes are taking place, they are divided into 3 classifications or 3 subsystems, which are atmospheric water, surface water, and subsurface water. So we can see that these all subcomponents, okay, they are part of hydrological cycle and they are well connected. So you see that precipitation. So when the precipitation occurs, part of the water from the precipitation that is intercepted by vegetation, and the remaining water it joins overland flow, and some part of this precipitation it goes to infiltration. And this overland flow, when the overland flow is taking place, some water seeps into the soil, that again become infiltration. Finally, this infiltrated water, this infiltrated water, it takes place as a subsurface flow, that is flow is taking place at shallow depth, and some part of infiltrated water that joins groundwater at deeper depths, and that becomes groundwater flow. So this subsurface flow and groundwater flow, they become interchangeable, become based on where the water table exists.